Welcome to the Fractured Families podcast. I'm Charity, your dedicated parental alienation coach, here to guide and support families as they navigate the challenges of high conflict divorces and custody battles. On this podcast, we'll share insights, practical strategies, and hope for those on the journey toward healing and justice. Whether you're personally experiencing these challenges or just want to learn more about the complexities of parental alienation and custody disputes, you're in the right place. You are not alone. This is the Fractured Families podcast where every voice matters and every story is heard. And if you find my conversation helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Your support helps us reach more families who need it. Hi, thanks for joining the Fractured Families podcast. This is Charity, your host. I have with me today Jahan, who is my guest, and he will be sharing his story of alienation. Jahan, thank you for being a guest and for your willingness to share your story. I know we met through my research project, so I appreciate your continued support. So why don't you go ahead and get us started? Tell us about your story of alienation, how it started, what's been happening, and where you're at.
All right. So my name's Jahan, and at this point, it's been just over a year since I've seen my now 4-year-old son. My story kind of starts a couple of years ago. My ex-wife and I were living in an apartment that was filled with toxic mold. And last August of 24, we decided that we would move out and rather be homeless instead of living in a toxic mold environment. For a little bit of context, well, I recently changed my degree, but I was a microbiology major, focusing in fungal pathogens. So know a little bit about mold poisoning. So about 2 weeks after we moved out, my then spouse decided that they wanted to leave me and not tell me that was the plan. And so I helped her get down to friends of hers. And 2 days after she left, she completely cut off all contact with me, told me that I was being abusive out of nowhere, and refused all contact with my son. And a few days later, served me with protection from abuse papers. I went to the first hearing where her lawyer handed me a note that effectively said that if I didn't take their deal, I would never see my child again. I might never see my child. And I asked for a motion to continue from that hearing. The courts never got in contact with me about when the follow-up hearing would be. I found out a few days prior because her lawyer sent me a motion so that she could appear via Zoom. And I filed a motion to continue and everything because they hadn't told me when anything was going to be. I still don't have any of that paperwork. Not sure why or how the court system couldn't get me required documentation, but so I missed that trial, and she of course won by default. And so she has moved out to Utah from Maine, which is several thousand miles, and didn't do it properly, didn't give me proper notification, anything like that, just up and moved. And I filed a motion for retrial that was denied. I filed a motion for immediate relief that was denied. In that one, the judge flat out told me that the psychological evaluation that I have, that clearly states that she suffers from delusions, hallucinations, and dissociative episodes, and in which she clearly states that she feels safe with me, didn't matter. Even more impressive was my spouse claimed, because I sent divorce papers to where she moved to, and her and her lawyer claimed that they had no idea how I got that address, and it was just so concerning and terrifying. What they failed to notice was that my third exhibit for the motion for immediate relief was a note from the friend that she moved out with supporting her disability claim, with the address that I used clearly printed on it. So the judge obviously didn't look at my exhibits. Everything I did was completely ignored. So in the end of July, I filed a grievance against her lawyer for unethical conduct, and Maine recently passed a law, LD 670, which requires family court to look at coercive control and manipulation and count it as abuse. So I filed a grievance against him. Not just the handwritten note. I have emails where he's told me that my ex-wife will never let me see my kid. That she will never let me have custody. Not the courts, not doing it lawfully, simply stating that as a mother, she will never let me have custody of our child. So I filed a grievance, and I don't know how many people know how grievances work. Not a lot of them go to investigation. A lot of people file grievances, but they don't really understand that you actually it's not about a disagreement. You can't file a grievance against a lawyer because you're upset with what they've done. It has to be because they violated their ethical codes or a law. So mine went from, I submitted it, it went to investigation. The lawyer responded, and it was all, oh, I didn't say that, or he misunderstood what I said. So my response was, this is what you said. This is my piece of evidence. These are the laws that you broke. He did not respond to my rebuttal, which usually means that lawyers know that they want to just keep their mouth shut at this point. He had until September 3rd to respond. He has not. I am still waiting on the bar to make their decision. And then once that goes through, I have a countersuit and a couple other things that I'm going to file as well, all based on Maine's new LD 670 law, which the judges don't really know about it yet. So this is going to be interesting. And I think that pretty much brings us up to where I'm at now.
A couple of questions. Is her lawyer, even though she resides in Utah, is her lawyer in Maine?
Yes, and Maine still has jurisdiction because everything was filed in Maine, and then she moved.
And I take it you're self-represented.
Yes.
Have you always been self-represented?
Yes. I am a student at the University of Maine, so I have access to their free legal advice.
When you guys decided that you were going to leave the house because there was moles, had you actually moved, or were you still contemplating the move when she left?
We had moved out of the apartment at that point in time. We were
Okay.
actually staying in a campsite while we were looking for new housing.
Okay. And so you were kind of blindsided when she picked up and said, I'm out.
Yeah. During the postpartum time, she had told me that this was how she would leave me, that she would claim abuse and get up on the stand and cry, and everybody would believe her and nobody would believe me. And at this point, I think that's the only honest thing she ever said to me. And after that, then she tried to convince me that, of course, that's not how she would leave me. But yeah.
So her allegations of abuse, what happened with those?
Nothing real. Well, the PFA is on for 2 years. Because she won the default judgment. Right now I've paused everything because for my own mental health, I needed to stop and take a step back. But one of the things that I have learned is that when you hire a lawyer, you are legally responsible for all of their actions. So if he gets disciplined for unethical conduct and possible violations of LD 670, I'm then going to file and basically have the PFA dismissed and everything with it, because everything he touched will then be, um, what's the word I'm looking for? I want to say invalidated, but I don't think that's the right legal term.
Yeah, I get it. So basically, everything he's done is dismissed because it is aligned with his practices along the way.
Yes. And because of what the LD 670 coercive control law, like that law was designed and placed to prevent situations like mine from happening.
So let's talk about your relationship with your son. Prior to her leaving and making his allegations, what was your relationship with him like?
It was amazing. Um, he was diagnosed with speech apraxia, um, toddler speech apraxia. So at almost 3, he had a very limited vocabulary of less than like a dozen words. And so we had him in speech, and then we were also doing the parent-child interactive therapy, um, which was doing a lot of good. Um, if you don't know what it is, they basically teach you to play with your kids. And if you're struggling or anything, like it's a fantastic program. Like, I learned a lot. Um, Simple things like I was always questioning kids, like, "Hey, is this what you're doing?" And one of the things that they taught me was don't ask questions. Say, "Oh, you are playing with the blue car." So like it worked really well for us. One of our little funny stories was I had gotten my hair cut, and for like 3 or 4 days we thought he was just really obsessed with the fact that I got my hair cut. And then we finally figured out that what he was saying was that he wanted his haircut like mine, but because his vocabulary was limited, we just thought he was talking about Papa haircut. And so finally we're like, oh my God, dude, do you want your, and he was so happy when we figured it out. It was adorable. Um, so yeah, before this happened, Howard and I had just an amazing relationship. He's, even despite the speech apraxia, um, he and I had a fantastic relationship. I mean, I have texts from my ex where they got home before I did and they were expecting me home, and he's just so sad. Like, he goes in and just stands and looks at my chair going, Papa? I was running a little bit late. I thought I was going to be home by then, you know? And like, yeah, we had a fantastic relationship before all of this. And now it's been a year, more than a year since I've seen him.
Do you speak with him at all? Do you have any communication with him?
No,
And you don't,
because the protection from abuse is and on behalf of toddler. And the deal that I did not take was because all I wanted was him taken off the PFA. That's it. That's all I wanted. I just didn't want to have any like I didn't care about the PFA on her. If that's what she needs to do to whatever, I don't care. I just didn't want the PFA on our son restricting my access to him. And it just they have used that against, like, they tried, like, I talked to the lawyer, said this is all I want. He's like, yep, we can do that. Went and talked to my ex. When our case came back up, the judge was reading through everything and got to one part and was like, and the PFA stays on both of them for the full 2 years. And I was like, no, that's not what I agreed to. And so they have turned the situation around and blamed me for being uncooperative because they tried to pull one over on me.
so when during the intact household, you had a great relationship with him. What role did, I mean, she's obviously the mother, but what was her role? Was she at home? Did she work? And what was her relationship like with him?
So she gets SSDI for severe PTSD, um, and agoraphobia. So, well, technically, she was the primary custodian. Custodian. I would quite often get texts from her losing, just losing it. And so I would have to come home early from school And I'd get there and she would be just on her phone in the living room, and he would be in his crib or in his bedroom, probably crying. And I would have to come in and calm everybody down and fix the situation. Um, and she did a lot of things that she claimed was like, oh, this is a trauma response. This is my trauma from, previous times. And I worked really hard with her trying to figure out how to navigate all of these um, triggers and trauma responses. Like one of the last times she had therapy there, I don't even remember what the conversation was, but she had opened the door for some reason, and I could hear the change in tone of her voice. So I just got up, grabbed a freezer pack from the freezer, went into the room, handed her the freezer pack, and left, because cold is one of those things that helps snap her out, you know. But ignore all the things that I did that were super healthy.
Okay, so she makes these allegations. Was there a divorce proceeding or was it I mean, what happened with that?
So she left and then just um, went to a lawyer, filed the PFA. Um, I believe I sent her divorce papers, which she didn't sign or return or do anything. Instead, she actually responded by charging me with violating the PFA. Those charges were they weren't dismissed; they were declined. And if you don't know this, there's a difference between declined and dismissed. So if prosecution declines to prosecute, there's no case, because it never even comes up. If it's dismissed, it's gone to trial of some kind. And then she filed divorce in a court where I do not reside. She does not reside. The only attachment to that court is it's where her lawyer works. And it's an hour plus away from where I am. So she filed it. I got served the papers. I haven't heard anything else from them yet. So, like, I have no idea where that's at, which is something I have to work on. It's on my list of things to do that I shouldn't have to do, but I still am going to have to do. I hate that list.
So with the okay, so with the divorce, and now you got the PFA, and obviously because of the PFA, you don't have parenting time, so you don't have custody. What does that look like for child support?
I have no idea. Nobody's contacted me about child support yet. Like, and that's the thing, is like, so at some point I'm going to get this huge bill because nobody's actually bothered to do their job properly. Like, this system is a mess. Maine, in a recent study, Maine came back as like the worst family court and DHHS system in the country. And that's really sad when I talk to other people and they tell me how bad it is in their state.
So what prompted her to move to Utah? Did she do that to keep him away from you? Or did she do it to act like she was so terrified of you that she had to move away?
Well, so little of column A, little of column B, but mostly it's column C, as in C is for Carol. So my wife is, for at least the last 15 years, has never actually had to accept responsibility for her actions, because she has a friend who will literally drive from Utah to Maine to rescue her from her own bad decisions. It is the most toxic, codependent, narcissistically weird relationship I've ever seen. But Carol will literally do anything to rescue her from her situation. So ultimately, she went to Utah to live with her friend, because her friend will also just let her live with her for free. Like, it's not a healthy relationship. Those two are. And again, when somebody will just save you from all of your bad actions, you never learn the consequences of your actions. So she left because that's, so terrified of me. And to keep our child safe and to live with her friend.
And you have no idea who cares for him, where he is, does none of that. You have no visibility to that. How about your family? Does she give anyone in your family visibility?
No, um, she's very much just cut me and my family completely out of his life with like no regard for the severe psychological abuse that she's putting him through. And the worst part is we talked about this. We talked about how important fathers' roles are. And so like, when people talk about like I didn't see it coming, like I didn't know that I married a narcissist, this is what they're talking about. Like she flat out, we had conversations about how she would never do this to me, about how she understood how important fathers' rights were and how, kids need both parents. And yet somewhere there's this crazy cognitive dissonance that she understands that other fathers are important, but not the father of her child.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, it's not an uncommon position that they take to just pick up and leave at all. The courts have got to be completely dysfunctional there because what I was expecting you to say about the child support is that they're reaming you, right? That's typically what happens is you lose your parenting rights and then you get stuck financially. But you're probably right. They're going to stick it to you. Not only did you not have the opportunity to be part of your son's life, have any parenting time, but then they're going to come back when they figure this out. So then for next steps, you're basically waiting for the lawyer with this new policy to see what happens with that.
Yes, because if if the grievance against the lawyer goes in my favor, um, one, I can go back and have everything dismissed. On top of that, what I have waiting is I have a countersuit that is based on LD 670, which would also dissolve the PFA, would require her to return here, relinquish custody to me, and would then actually put a PFA on her for me and our child. Um, with that, I also have a motion for an evidentiary hearing, um, something that I've learned about recently, which is a really powerful move when it comes to family court because they love to just throw out evidence, right? Because it's just the preponderance of evidence, and it's all basically on how the judge feels that particular day. Um, with an evidentiary hearing, it changes the playground a little bit because it sets up a hearing where everybody brings all of their evidence and then the judge decides which evidence can be submitted, which can't, what's going to be thrown out. That's when you have your argument to really argue the evidence, not the emotional narrative. And then the things that are decided there will carry into your next hearing because you do a evidentiary hearing. So mine would be the motion for evidentiary hearing for my countersuit. Um, and then once you have that all lined up, then when you do, like for me, when I go and file my countersuit and we go to trial for that, I'll already know what can and can't be used for evidence. Um, I only really have like two or three pieces that absolutely have to get accepted. But I have a stack of evidence like this. I mean, I have all of the Social Security disability appeals and claims. I have two psychological evaluations. I have a speech evaluation where the clinician observes that our son's behavior and willingness to participate greatly increases upon the return of his father. That is a solid piece of evidence right there. I have notes from therapists, mine and hers, in support of the disability claim. Um, like, and I think that's the hardest part is like, I know so many people going through this that have just such ironclad cases, and yet the judges won't look at the evidence.
Yeah, that's a problem. They completely dismiss it, ignore it. I mean, you can have stacks proving that one parent is unfit, and that's the decision that they make. I mean, they get it wrong 90% of the time. So it's really interesting because this is just erasure. It's not even alienation. She just completely erased you. But typically what I find is that during the intact household, you start to recognize signs of alienation. Did you recognize any of that during your time when you were married and you had your son in the household? No, nothing that jumped out at you?
No, when we were together, when again, and this is one of those things where when people say I had no idea, I had some pretty, like, literally, she, at one point, she told me she was going to leave me and this is how she was going to do it. But then she turned it around so much. Like, she made sure that I had good time with him. Like, him and I had plenty of time together. We all, him and I bonded. She always tried to make sure that I was involved. She didn't, like, try to keep him from me at all while we were living together. In fact, I mean, she did kind of complain that because I was in school, like, she had to do too much, and so, like, I came home often, and when I did that, I would usually take our son myself and either take him for a walk or go play with him. That was Papa and son time, you know, so that she could relax and get away. So yeah, there was no real sign of alienation when we were still a couple. It wasn't until, and that's part of it that hits so hard, is like, she left the first day she was gone. All of our messages were about how much she loved me and how much she was, we're trying to figure this out and make sure that we could, do what's right for Howard and this and that. And then the next morning, we didn't even get into a fight. It was just, some crankiness and a little bit of disagreement. And then all of a sudden, she just stopped responding to me and wouldn't respond at all. And only responded through friends of hers who told me to back off because she needed space, but wouldn't talk to me until that night when she was finally like, you need to stop talking to me and you'll hear from my lawyer. Like, out of nowhere. It's like with like less than 12 hours, she went from I love you to you're abusive. This has got to stop. And I have it all. I got the programs to turn all of our text messages into PDF so that they can be submitted in court. Yes.
And obviously no regard for your son. That, I mean, just
Oh, no. I'll see you at the meeting. I lied.
Yeah, and I think that's it, is like, when I went to that first hearing, that was my whole point, was, and I have this beautiful email that I wrote that I was like, look, this isn't good for our son. This isn't what I want to do. I want to do mediation. Here's 3 options. I give you 3 options, and I am willing to negotiate points on any of these 3 options. And all of them were just to keep us out of court and to make sure that I had contact with our child. And it was like a page and a half email. It was a really long, really well written email. And the response was, she says no to everything. That's it. No attempt to communicate, no attempt for mediation, no attempt for us to work through this without going through, like, this was her choice. Like, she very much wanted to do this, which means that she is actively, willingly, and knowingly a child abuser.
any thoughts, any final thoughts for our listeners that you want to share about your story or alienation or anything?
If you're going through this, get educated. Find the support, find other alienated parents. Don't wait. Don't rely on lawyers. The lawyers are not going to help you. Really, go pro se. Learn the laws. That's the only way you're going to win. Nobody is going to fight for your kids as hard as you're going to. Nobody. You have to get in there. You have to get educated. You have to know exactly what's going on and why you've lost. One of the best analogies I've heard so far about court is, if you go and you watch a sports game, that you don't know the rules to, you're going to have no idea why one team is winning and one team is losing. It's the same thing for court. If you don't know the rules, you're not going to know why things went against you. Get educated, learn the rules, play the system. That's really all you can do.
I do emphasize to a lot of my clients, go sit in the courtroom, whether it's your judge or not. Just go sit in the courtroom. Take 2 days off of work and sit in and listen to family court, and you will learn real quickly. One, about the unfairness. Two, how to position yourself to be more effective. And then three, is your judge for or against what you're positioning in your case? I cannot emphasize enough how important that is. Yeah, it takes time. Yeah, you got to call off of work, but isn't your case and the outcomes in your favor worth that for you?
It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. That was one of the hardest things that, like, my mental health wasn't okay until I really realized that. I kept being so angry and upset that things weren't moving as fast as I thought they should be, that like I was losing. And then I kind of woke up one morning and was just like, it doesn't matter how fast I want this to move. It's going to move at its own rate. It's going to move at its own speed. And just because I lost these hearings doesn't mean that I've lost overall. And, I think that's it. Get educated, really understand what it is that's going on. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. Self-care, take care of yourself. It's okay to step back. This is one of the worst things that you can ever go through. It will destroy you. And you have to just figure out how you keep going.
Jahan, I thank you for being a guest on the Fractured Families podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining me on this episode of the Fractured Families podcast. I hope our conversation has provided you with support, understanding, and actionable insights to help you navigate your own family challenges. Remember, healing is a journey, and reaching out for help is a sign of strength. You're not alone. If you found value in today's episode, please subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Your support helps us reach more families in need. You can contact me on social media at Parental Alienation is Real and visit our website for additional resources and ways to get involved. Stay strong, stay connected, and keep fighting for the family bonds that matter most. Until next time, take care and stay resilient.